Hello, I'm Megan, a 34-year-old entrepreneur running a growing app development company. While it's still a small operation, it brings me great joy and fulfillment. My husband, Willie, is 2 years older than me and works at a bank. We're both deeply passionate about our careers, and it's not unusual for us to have long, thoughtful discussions that stretch late into the night. Willie has always been incredibly supportive of my work, and we share household responsibilities equally. We've been married for 5 years now. Though we don't have children yet, we both love kids and look forward to starting a family one day. I come from a family that owns an auto parts factory, started by my father and now managed by my brother. This has given me the freedom to focus on building my own company. My family has been a vital support system, always there when I need advice or encouragement. Willie, on the other hand, is an only child. His family owns a small factory, and his parents had always hoped he would take over the business. However, Willie chose banking as his career, which caused some disappointment for them. His decision to pursue banking came from several factors. The factory had been struggling for years, and his father, Arthur, had even considered shutting it down. Growing up, Willie had admired a banker who regularly visited the factory, and this admiration sparked his own interest in the field. Now, he works at a large bank and has built a solid career. On the outside, our marriage seems perfect, but like any relationship, we have our struggles. One of the biggest issues comes from my mother-in-law, Denise. She doesn't respect my job because I work from home, dismissing it as unimportant. It's frustrating because, like many from older generations, she doesn't fully understand the value of remote work. Recently, Denise crossed a line. She insisted that I join the family on a trip, and shockingly, she threatened that if I refused, I would no longer be considered part of the family. She even suggested that my absence could lead to divorce, claiming I needed to be re-educated about family responsibilities. This conversation unfolded while my husband, Willie, seemed hesitant and unsure of how to respond. Despite his reluctance, he didn't speak up, leaving me to reluctantly agree to Denise's demands. Little did I know, this trip would be my last with my in-laws. Despite the ongoing tension, I remain committed to my work and personal happiness, doing my best to navigate these complicated family dynamics. Working from home is still work, and it can be exhausting. I always rearrange my schedule to accommodate my in-laws' plans, trying to avoid any inconvenience. While I don't expect them to fully understand the intricacies of remote work, it's discouraging when they assume it's easy just because I have a flexible schedule. Unfortunately, the challenges go beyond this. My mother-in-law, Denise, takes issue with several aspects of our lifestyle. When Willie and I got married, we chose to build our home in a location that's convenient for both of our families, about a 25-minute drive to either house, depending on the route. As a dual-income couple, Willie and I manage our finances separately, believing in maintaining both independence and privacy. We each contribute a set amount for our living expenses, save for the future, and keep the rest of our finances private. Denise strongly disapproves of this arrangement, believing that couples should share everything and that it's strange for family members to keep things from each other. To her, keeping personal matters private means we aren't a real family. I can't shake the feeling that Denise's disapproval stems from her dislike of me. She adores Willie, so in her eyes, I'm more of a nuisance. Whenever we see each other, she never misses the chance to make hurtful comments about us not having children yet, a sensitive subject for me. Most people understand it's inappropriate to bring up personal topics like that, but Denise doesn't hesitate. To avoid confrontation and to keep the peace for Willie's sake, I've even started staying late at work on purpose, just to steer clear of her. Denise has surprised me in many ways, but one incident truly crossed the line. It happened on the day of my best friend's wedding. My friend was moving abroad after tying the knot, and I was eager to celebrate this special occasion with her, knowing our chances to see each other would be limited afterward. However, A week before the wedding, Willie approached me with a request from his father, Arthur. He wanted me to attend an important business reception on the same day. Naturally, I refused. The only thing that could keep me from my friend's wedding would be a life-or-death family emergency. That evening, when I returned home from work, I was shocked to find my in-laws at our house. As soon as Denise spotted me, she confronted me angrily. "Megan, what were you thinking? Refusing Arthur's request is outrageous. As Willie's wife, you should prioritize family obligations. Your refusal is unacceptable, and you need to rethink your priorities," she yelled. Willie was there too, caught in the middle of this difficult situation. He remained silent as I realized just how critical the reception was for the company's future. Yet, my best friend's wedding held equal importance to me. I explained to Denise, "I understand the situation, but attending my best friend's wedding is incredibly important to me. I don't want to miss it. Besides, I don't work for Arthur's company." At that moment, to my shock, even Willie chimed in. "Can't you make an exception this time? It's really about the survival of the company. I'm going, and it's a family effort. We can make it up to you later for missing the wedding. It's a family crisis. Can't you help us?" I was taken aback by Willie's words, especially since he knew how much I had been looking forward to the wedding. Then Arthur interjected. "I understand Megan's point, but we really need her help this time." The pressure of the moment weighed heavily on me, making it hard to refuse. In the end, I reluctantly agreed to skip my best friend's wedding. I explained the situation to my friend, who, understanding the complexities of my family dynamics, was more concerned about my well-being than her own wedding day. Her kindness and empathy made me grateful for her support. Although I felt guilty for missing her big day, I was determined to help make the reception a success. Willie and I arrived early at the venue, but despite our efforts to contact Denise, she didn't answer her phone. Finally, just 15 minutes before the event was set to start, my in-laws showed up, looking disheveled with messy hair and wrinkled clothes. I couldn't help but ask Denise, "What happened?" "I just overslept," she replied awkwardly, then added with a cautionary tone, "Megan, make sure you're not rude." I was on the verge of snapping back but managed to hold my tongue. As the reception unfolded, Denise, perhaps trying to lighten the mood, made a series of inappropriate comments to our guests. Throughout the event, I felt a strong sense of pride in myself for maintaining my composure despite the challenging circumstances and Denise's awkward handling of social interactions. This experience highlighted the complexities of balancing personal desires with family obligations, and it was a day I wouldn't soon forget. The forced smiles of my in-laws and the awkwardness in the air were palpable, and as I had feared, we didn't secure the contract. The event concluded without any success, leaving me frustrated and disillusioned. In hindsight, I would have much preferred to attend my best friend's wedding. The disappointment of the failed reception weighed heavily on me, especially since 2. It had disrupted my plans without any acknowledgement of fault from my in-laws. They brushed off the failure, likening the lack of a contract to dodging a bullet with untrustworthy people. Their ability to dismiss the situation so nonchalantly left me utterly speechless. Following this incident, my discomfort around my in-laws grew, leading me to avoid them more. However, one thing I couldn't escape was the annual family trip, a tradition in Willie's family since his childhood that persisted even after our marriage. Each year, I was expected to join, and the responsibility of planning, arranging hotels, booking, and researching tourist spots always fell to me. My suggestions were frequently dismissed, and often during these trips, I found myself left behind in the hotel room, missing out on experiences I might have enjoyed. I dreaded these family outings and sometimes wished I could fall ill just to avoid them. With this year's trip looming, my in-laws planned another extravagant getaway despite their supposed financial constraints. As always, I was tasked with the logistics. trying to keep everyone, especially my often complaining sister-in-law Kayla, in a good mood. Being the sober driver provided a small relief, sparing me from enduring their tiresome conversations. However, just before the trip, I received distressing news. My mother had collapsed and was in critical condition. Going on the trip felt unthinkable. I needed to be with her immediately. As I prepared to head to the hospital, Willie offered to come with me, but I declined. His suggestion felt like an implication about my mom's prognosis, a thought I couldn't bear to consider. When Willie and I informed Denise that we wouldn't be able to join the trip, she erupted in anger. "You're saying you can't go on the trip I planned? If you don't come, you're no longer part of the family. As my son's wife, it's common sense to prioritize the family trip, right, Willie?" she exclaimed, seeking affirmation from him. She cut him off just as he seemed about to speak, clearly indicating she was not open to other opinions. In that moment, I was too shocked to respond. Nothing could be more important than being with my mom in her critical condition. Just as I gathered myself to respond, my phone rang. It was my brother, confirming the seriousness of our mom's condition. While she was somewhat stable, visiting her was currently impossible due to a contagious disease outbreak. My brother explained that if she recovered, we could arrange a short visit later. This left me feeling uncertain about my next steps. Sensing my hesitation, he asked about my concerns. I openly shared my dilemma between attending the family trip and the urge to be near our mother. Visibly frustrated, he then made a helpful suggestion I hadn't considered in my distress. The trip's destination was near our parents' home. He assured me that from the hotel, I could quickly reach our family's house if necessary. Indeed, if visiting the hospital wasn't an option, whether I stayed at home or the hotel made little difference. Accepting my brother's suggestion, I decided to go on the trip. When I informed Denise, she responded, "Goodness, if you had just said that from the start, I wouldn't have had to get so angry. It's hard to marry someone so naive. Just remember, if you don't come, it's divorce. Honestly, I'll have to re-educate you from now on." Willie looked surprised by his mother's harsh words but agreed to my condition that I could leave for the hospital if necessary. He joked, "It would be trouble if our driver suddenly disappeared, right? But remember, you're part of this family now, so our needs come first. Your role as my wife means this family trip should be your top priority." Denise's triumphant attitude and obvious excitement irked me, but to avoid further conflict, I decided to endure it. On the day of the trip, I was so anxious about my mom that I couldn't put down my phone. Even as Denise began her day with beer, turning the backseat of my car into a party scene, even Willie joined in the drinking, which surprised me. However, considering everyone had rearranged their schedules for this trip, I thought it would be nice if they could enjoy themselves. Throughout the journey, Denise's whims were relentless. From demanding immediate bathroom breaks to insisting on stops at the grocery store for more alcohol. I felt more like a servant, but I was prepared to endure it for the sake of family peace. Then, a call from my brother brought a wave of relief. My mom had survived. Her condition had stabilized, and she had regained consciousness after suffering a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Knowing she was on the mend allowed me to breathe easier and continue the trip with a lighter heart. Despite the challenging dynamics with my in-laws, however, I couldn't fully relax just yet, as there were lingering concerns about potential aftereffects. Regular updates from my brother were a comfort, helping to keep my anxiety at bay. When I shared the good news about Mom's recovery with my in-laws, Denise dismissed it with a wave of her hand. "If she's better, there's no need to bother us with such news. You're making a big deal out of nothing." Arthur quickly chimed in. "Exactly. No need to spoil our trip with such grim news. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves." I felt a growing sense of alienation from their lack of empathy. I couldn't see them as my family. Their behavior only worsened as the trip went on. They caused a scene at the hotel with their drinking and partying, which was both embarrassing and deepened my distress toward them. Thankfully, Mom's condition remained stable, so we didn't need to rush to the hospital. This allowed us to complete the trip and return home without any further incidents. Once back, while I was busy with laundry, Denise showed up at our house unannounced, dragging along a massive pile of her own. "You have a dryer, right? We don't have one, so let me use yours," she demanded, clearly expecting me to accommodate her. Exasperated, I replied, "There's a laundromat with dryers nearby. I have a load of my own, and I'm using it right now, so it's not possible," I replied, trying to stay firm. Denise snapped back, "Always so stingy. Once you're done, it's fine. I'll come to pick it up tomorrow, just leave it finished by then." She attempted to leave her laundry in our washroom, but Wiley intervened. "Go to a laundromat. Megan is tired, and she has to work tomorrow." "It's not possible," he said, his tone brokering no argument. Denise left abruptly, visibly upset that her son was standing up for me, hurling insults as she slammed the door behind her, leaving her laundry behind. If only things had been different that day, perhaps the course of events would have changed. Later, Denise returned with a new proposition. "During the trip, I realized something. Megan, you lack awareness of what it means to be married to Willie. We might face similar situations in the future, and since we couldn't discuss it then, I decided that you should make a decision," she said, placing a family contract and divorce papers on the table. I was dumbfounded. What even is a family contract? It was absurd and only confirmed my belief that she couldn't engage in a normal conversation. In that moment, Wiley stood up, finally taking a firm stand. "I have something to say. If you keep imposing your biased views on us, I'll cut ties. I can't deal with this anymore." "What do you think, Megan? She's not your servant or housekeeper. You're the one who's mistaken about your position." Denise looked stunned. Until now, Wiley had rarely opposed her. His newfound assertiveness marked a turning point, suggesting that perhaps things could change for the better between us. He had always been quiet about his disagreements with Denise's views, not because he agreed with her but because he wanted to avoid conflict. But after his outspoken defense, Denise redirected her anger towards me. "You've changed him. He used to be so sweet. You must have brainwashed him." This accusation was harsh and unfair. Wiley, standing firm, countered, "The real issue here isn't me being brainwashed by Megan. It's your controlling behavior. You're always on a rampage, never listening to anyone else's opinions. Frankly, you're a toxic parent. You've never allowed me to do what I wanted, and now you're directing your venom at Megan. Enough is enough. I'm not going to divorce her, and if you have a problem with our marriage, you need to stay out of our lives." 3. This confrontation left Denise in tears, and she turned to Arthur for support. When Wiley made his feelings clear, Arthur simply said, "If that's what Wiley thinks, then fine. We'll cut ties. Do whatever you want." Before storming out, I was taken aback but relieved to see Wiley standing up for our relationship. After the incident, I spoke with my brother, who was furious upon hearing how Denise and Arthur had treated us. He decided to take action, which led to significant fallout within the in-laws family. It turned out that my brother's company was a client of my in-laws' business. We had kept our family company name under wraps to avoid any power imbalances or conflicts of interest. The in-laws had no idea they were dealing with my family's business. With tensions running high, it became impossible to separate business from personal matters. My brother had been frustrated with them for not meeting deadlines, echoing the sentiment, "You can't cherish those who don't cherish you." After discussing it with Wiley, who felt that enough was enough, we made the difficult decision to end the business relationship. Wiley agreed that the ongoing issues with his family's company, like late payments and missed deadlines, were too problematic to overlook. Despite the personal ties involved, This was a business decision driven by necessity rather than emotion. We had tolerated these issues for too long because of family connections, but ultimately, professional standards had to be upheld. This move marked a significant turning point, emphasizing the importance of boundaries in both family and business dealings. After my brother's company severed ties, my in-laws were shocked to learn why. They approached us in tears, repeatedly apologizing and pleading with my brother to reconsider his decision. However, reinstating the contract was out of the question due to their chronic issues with meeting deadlines. They should have been grateful for the patience we had shown them over the years. Willie took the time to explain the situation to his parents, but they couldn't accept the consequences and ultimately chose to sever ties in anger. Surprisingly, Willie wasn't saddened by this outcome. Instead, he felt a sense of relief. For too long, he had been caught in the exhausting tug-of-war between his family obligations and our life together. Since the separation, we have been living a more peaceful life. I learned that Willie had been quietly supporting his family financially, but he had now stopped those payments. His family's factory, already teetering on the brink of bankruptcy and swamped in debt, inevitably went under. It was eye-opening to discover that Willie had even been funding those lavish annual trips they insisted on, which explained a lot about their previously extravagant lifestyle. Now living more modestly, Denise had even taken up a job. Seeing her, who had always prided herself on being a president's wife, now working a cleaning job was a stark contrast. One day, I witnessed her being scolded at work. While part of me saw it as a form of karma, I also recognized it as a tough lesson in reality for her, one that might eventually help her understand the value of hard work and humility. As for Willie and me, our careers continue to thrive. We haven't had children yet, but we are enjoying our professional lives, and our relationship is fulfilling. We are even planning an overseas trip for our next vacation. For now, we are content to embrace life as it is, without the immediate addition of children, relishing the journey together and cherishing the quieter moments we've come to appreciate.